You can fire me, but don't humiliate me. Black Maid Talia Brooks stood beside a long dining table, her hands trembling around a folded white napkin. Across from her, Billionaire's wife Graham Ashford held up a silver bell like she was directing a performance. And the camera behind Corinne was still recording. Corinne smiled coldly. Excuse me? Talia lifted her chin. You heard me. Before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments what city or country you're watching from, because this was the first time Talia had challenged Corinne, and it would expose something far worse than one cruel dinner. Talia had worked at Ashford Manor outside Charleston for 14 months. The job had once been excellent. Billionaire Graham Ashford traveled often, but he treated staff with respect. He paid overtime, remembered birthdays, and never raised his voice. Then he married Corinne. At first, Corinne's cruelty looked like preference. She corrected Talia's posture, changed her uniform, ordered her to use side hallways so guests would not see staff crossing the main rooms. Then came the etiquette lessons. Corinne had begun building a luxury lifestyle brand called House of Corinne. Her videos taught wealthy clients how to host perfect dinners. Instead of hiring actors, she used the household staff. Talia became her favorite example of what not to do. Hold the tray higher. Show everyone the wrong way. Smile. You're making the video uncomfortable. Whenever Talia objected, Corinne claimed Graham had approved filming inside the manor. What Graham approved were decorating videos. Not humiliation. Tonight was supposed to be a private investor dinner. Talia had set the table exactly according to Corinne's printed instructions. At 7:40, Corinne rang the silver bell. Talia. She approached. Yes, Mrs. Ashford. Corinne pointed at a place setting. What is wrong here? Talia examined it. Nothing. The guests laughed softly. Corinne picked up the dessert spoon. It is 2 centimeters too close to the plate. Talia noticed a ruler beside Corinne's wineglass. She finally understood. This wasn't about dinner. It was content. One guest had already turned toward the wall camera. Corinne smiled. Show them how you set it. Talia remained still. Mrs. Ashford, you approved this table before the guests arrived. Corinne's smile vanished. Are you correcting me? I'm answering your question. Corinne rang the bell again. Talia, reset the entire table. Dinner had already been served. Now? Yes. One guest laughed. Corinne, you're terrifying. Corinne smiled. Standards are terrifying to people who don't have them. Talia began collecting the silverware. Then Corinne stopped her. First apologize. For what? For embarrassing me. I didn't. You challenged me in front of my guests. Corinne turned toward the camera. This is useful. People always ask how to deal with defensive staff. Talia froze. Suddenly, she remembered the previous 3 months. A gardener forced to repeat an apology because mud reached the terrace. A cook made to remake a dish after Corinne secretly added salt. A driver ordered beside a scratched car while Corinne lectured viewers about careless employees. They had not been mistakes. They had been episodes. Corinne was manufacturing humiliation for her brand. Talia, apologize. No. Corinne blinked. What? No. One employee near the doorway looked up. Corinne's face hardened. Think carefully about your next sentence. Talia placed the silverware down. For months, she had swallowed insults because her younger cousin depended on her while finishing community college. Her rent depended on this job. Her insurance depended on this job. But dignity had started costing more than unemployment frightened her. You can fire me, Talia said, but don't humiliate me. Nobody laughed now. Corinne glanced at the camera. You're being dramatic. You film us without telling us how the footage will be used. The manor release covers household media, not staged mistakes. Corinne's eyes narrowed. You're accusing me? Yes. Talia pointed at the dessert spoon. You moved it. Corinne went still. I saw your reflection in the serving mirror before dinner. A guest slowly lowered his wineglass. Corinne laughed. That's ridiculous. Then show the footage from before the guests arrived. Silence. The camera was connected to a production monitor near the sideboard. Talia walked toward it. Corinne moved faster. She grabbed the monitor and switched it off. That was when the guests stopped seeing an argument. They saw fear. Talia saw it too. What else is on that camera? Corinne's face changed. Go upstairs. Pack your things. Talia nodded. Fine. She removed her apron. Then the dining room doors opened. Graham Ashford stood there. He had returned from New York 6 hours early. His gaze moved from Talia's apron to Corinne gripping the monitor. What exactly am I interrupting? Talia just quit. Graham looked at Talia. Did you? After your wife tried to humiliate me on camera. His expression changed. Corinne laughed nervously. She misunderstood a training exercise. Training for what? Nobody answered. Then one guest spoke. For her videos. Graham slowly turned toward his wife. What videos? Corinne's face completely lost color. The camera's tiny red light suddenly came back on. The system was still recording. A file transfer bar appeared on the monitor. Uploading. Staff corrections. Episode 12. Graham stared at it. Episode 12? Talia felt her stomach drop. She had believed tonight was the first time Corinne tried turning her humiliation into entertainment. It wasn't. There were 11 earlier episodes. And Talia had no idea how many times she had already been filmed. Graham stared at the upload bar. Staff corrections, episode 12. 32%. 33. 34. Corinne reached for the monitor. Graham caught her wrist before she could touch it. Don't. She pulled away. Graham, this looks worse than it is. Talia stood near the dining table, still holding her folded apron. Then let him watch it. Corinne looked at her. You're fired. Graham turned sharply. No, she isn't. This is my household too. And apparently you've been using my employees as props. Corinne's face tightened. They signed media releases. Talia shook her head. We signed permission to appear accidentally in estate promotional footage. Graham looked at her. What promotional footage? The architecture videos. Holiday decorating. Charity events. Not this. No. Corinne folded her arms. You're splitting hairs. Talia looked at the camera. You filmed me being humiliated without telling me it was entertainment. The upload reached 41%. Graham unplugged the network cable. The bar stopped. Corinne exhaled. Then Graham noticed something. The file was still being copied locally. Where are these episodes stored? Corinne said nothing. Graham turned toward the production assistant standing near the far wall. The young woman looked terrified. Melanie. She swallowed. Yes, Mr. Ashford. Where are the files? Corinne snapped. Do not answer that. Graham looked at her. Why? They're company property. Which company? Silence. Talia noticed the same thing Graham did. Corinne had never once called the videos House of Corinne property before. She always described them as personal content. Melanie finally spoke. An external editing studio. Corinne closed her eyes. Graham asked, name? Bright Frame Media. Account owner? Melanie hesitated. Mrs. Ashford. Graham looked at Corinne. Show me episode 1. No. Then I call my attorneys and freeze every account associated with production until I know whether my employees were filmed illegally. Corinne stared at him. You wouldn't. Graham took out his phone. She broke first. Fine. Melanie connected a laptop. A folder appeared. 12 episodes. Each had a title. The Lazy Gardener. When Staff Talk Back. The Driver Who Lied. How to Correct a Clumsy Maid. Talia's stomach turned. Graham clicked episode 4. The screen showed Lewis, one of the gardeners, standing beside the terrace. Corinne's cheerful narration played over the footage. Today we're discussing what happens when household staff stop respecting boundaries. The video showed Lewis apologizing repeatedly for tracking dirt across the stone floor. But Talia remembered that day. It had rained for 8 hours. Louis had been moving outdoor furniture inside because Corinne ordered him to. The video had been edited to remove that part. Instead, captions framed him as careless. Graham paused it. Did he know this was being filmed? Melanie whispered. No. Corinne stepped forward. The cameras are visible. That isn't consent. Graham opened another episode. Maria, a housekeeper, was shown dropping a folded tablecloth. Corinne replayed the moment 3 times in slow motion. Guests at some earlier dinner could be heard laughing. Then came Corinne's voice. Attention to detail separates professional household staff from people who simply need a paycheck. Talia looked away. Maria had cried in the pantry afterward. Talia had believed it was because Corinne yelled at her. She never knew the footage had been turned into content. Graham's face grew colder with every episode. How many people have seen these? Melanie looked at Corinne. Answer him, Talia said. Melanie swallowed. Some clips were tested privately. Tested where? Graham asked. A paid subscriber group. Corinne immediately interrupted. It's only a few hundred people. Melanie whispered. 8,400. The room went silent. Talia stared at Corinne. You sold access? Corinne's voice sharpened. It was business research. You charged people to watch us? They weren't paying for you. They were paying for household management advice. Talia laughed once. There was no humor in it. You turned people's worst moments into lessons for rich strangers. Graham opened the subscriber dashboard. Revenue appeared on the screen. $312,600. In 4 months. He slowly looked at his wife. You made over $300,000 using employees who didn't know they were content. Corinne crossed her arms. They were already being paid salaries. Talia stared at her. That may be the ugliest thing you've said tonight. Corinne looked at her. Careful. Talia stepped forward. No. Her voice stayed calm. You told me to be careful every time I asked a question. She pointed toward the screen. You edited Louis until he looked lazy. Another episode. You edited Maria until she looked incompetent. Another. You edited me until I looked stupid. Corinne's expression hardened. You did make mistakes. So did you. Talia pointed at the dining table. But nobody put a ruler beside your mistakes and charged strangers to watch. One of the investors at the table quietly stood. Graham, I think we should leave. Graham nodded. Everyone who was invited as a guest, please go. Corinne looked shocked. This is my investor dinner. Not anymore. Within minutes, the room emptied except for Graham, Talia, Corinne, Melanie, and 2 senior household employees. Graham turned toward Melanie. Back up every file. Corinne snapped. You cannot take company material. Graham looked at her. I'm preserving evidence. Of what? Possibly privacy violations. Unauthorized commercial use. Employment retaliation. Corinne's confidence weakened. Graham continued. And maybe fraud. She frowned. Fraud. He pointed toward the subscriber platform. This account lists Ashford Residential Academy as the content owner. Talia looked at him. What's that? Graham's face hardened. It's a dormant education company owned by one of my trusts. Corinne said quickly. You gave me permission to develop it. I gave you permission to explore a hospitality training program. Yes. I did not give you permission to use secretly recorded employees to build it. Corinne said nothing. Graham checked the payment records. Revenue from the subscriber group had not gone into Corinne's personal company. It had gone into Ashford Residential Academy. Then transferred out. Multiple payments. Consulting fees. Licensing fees. Production expenses. All sent to companies Graham had never heard of. Talia noticed his expression. What is it? Money is moving through my company. Corinne looked suddenly nervous. Graham opened another report. One vendor appeared repeatedly. Morrow Domestic Solutions. More than $190,000 paid in 3 months. Who is Morrow? Melanie quietly answered. They create the training profiles. Talia frowned. What training profiles? Nobody answered. Graham looked at Corinne. What are they? Corinne stepped toward the laptop. Enough. Graham blocked her. Melanie. The assistant's eyes filled with tears. They score staff behavior. Talia felt her stomach tighten. Score us how? Melanie opened a folder. Each employee had a profile. Reliability. Obedience. Emotional response. Financial dependence. Likelihood of resignation. Talia stared at her own name. Talia Brooks. Under emotional response. Maintains composure under correction. Resistant to shame techniques. Increased public pressure recommended. Talia stopped breathing. Graham looked horrified. What the hell is this? Corinne tried to defend herself. It's workforce analytics. Talia turned toward her. You were testing how much humiliation it took to break us. No. That is exactly what this says. Graham opened another tab. There were dozens of profiles. Not just Ashford Manor employees. Housekeepers. Nannies. Drivers. Cooks. Staff from wealthy homes across Charleston, Atlanta, Palm Beach, and New York. Talia stared. This is bigger than your videos. Melanie nodded. Morrow wanted real reactions. Graham looked at her. Real reactions for what? To train clients. What clients? Melanie whispered. Luxury households. Talia felt sick. Corinne had not simply humiliated staff for attention. She had been helping build a system teaching wealthy employers which pressure tactics made domestic workers obey. Public shame. Threats to references. Schedule manipulation. Isolation. Financial pressure. Graham stared at his wife. You turned my home into a laboratory. Corinne's eyes filled with anger. You have no idea how valuable this business could become. Talia looked at her. That's your answer. It's a market nobody understands properly. We're people. You're employees. Graham slammed the laptop shut. No. Everyone froze. He looked at Corinne. That distinction is exactly why you thought you could do this. Then Talia remembered something. Morrow. Graham turned. What? 3 weeks ago, a man came to the kitchen asking for Corinne. What man? He said his name was Dr. Adrian Morrow. Corinne went pale. Talia continued. He asked me whether I ever thought about leaving. Graham stared. What did you say? I said sometimes. And? He smiled. Talia's voice lowered. He said, that's usually when the useful data begins. Corinne suddenly grabbed the laptop. Graham caught it before she could run. But Melanie gasped. The production monitor had changed. A remote connection had appeared. Someone outside the mansion was accessing the files. Folder after folder began disappearing. Graham shouted. Disconnect everything. Melanie yanked the router cable. Too late. A message appeared on the screen. Remote archive purge initiated. Beneath it. Morrow administrator access. Talia looked at Corinne. You knew he could erase everything. Corinne did not answer. Then another message appeared. Not for Graham. For Talia. Subject Brooks has escalated. Begin termination protocol. Talia stared at the words. Graham looked at his wife. What exactly is a termination protocol? For the first time all night, Corinne looked genuinely afraid. And when she finally answered, her voice was barely audible. It doesn't mean firing her. Corinne's words changed the room. It doesn't mean firing her. Talia stared at her. Then what does it mean? Corinne looked toward the dark production monitor. Graham stepped closer. Answer her. Morrow calls it behavioral termination. What is that? It means making someone unemployable. Silence. Corinne rushed on. They don't hurt people physically. They destroy credibility. Bad references. Edited footage. Anonymous complaints. Claims of theft. Enough pressure that the employee leaves the industry. Talia felt cold. You were going to ruin my life because I refused to apologize on camera? I didn't activate it. The message says it's active now. Graham reopened the laptop. Melanie pointed at the screen. There's still a local copy in the camera system. Can Morrow reach it? Not without the house network. Graham called security. Take every router and smart hub offline. Nothing reconnects until my attorney arrives. Then Talia looked at Corinne. How many people have been terminated this way? Corinne said nothing. Melanie answered. 17 that I know of. A spreadsheet appeared. Beside their names were notes. Resigned after allegation. Reference network notified. Employment applications flagged. Subject relocated. Talia's stomach twisted. What does relocated mean? Corinne whispered. They usually left the city. You say that like it's normal. It wasn't supposed to become this. Graham laughed bitterly. You keep saying that after every new level of cruelty. Melanie suddenly pointed at another folder. Wait. A subfolder named Raw Tests had survived. Inside were unedited videos. One showed Maria standing in the pantry while Corinne accused her of breaking an antique vase. The raw footage revealed something missing from the published episode. Before Maria entered, Dr. Adrian Morrow himself placed the broken vase on the floor. Talia stared. He staged it. Melanie opened another clip. Louis the gardener carried wet equipment across the terrace after Corinne specifically ordered him to use that entrance. Minutes later, she filmed herself criticizing him for tracking mud. Another clip showed Morrow dragging a metal buckle against the garage door before blaming the driver for the scratch. Talia whispered. They manufactured the mistakes. Corinne closed her eyes. Graham looked at her. You knew. Some. Now Talia was watching proof that the humiliations had been engineered. The tests had been designed so she could not succeed. Melanie opened Talia's folder. One raw file had been recorded 6 weeks earlier. Talia watched herself enter the library carrying flowers. After she left, Morrow appeared. He moved a bronze letter opener from Graham's desk into the pocket of Talia's spare apron hanging in the service room. Talia's face drained. I never found that. Melanie checked the notes. Theft test aborted, subject left early. Graham looked at Talia. That was the day you went home sick. Yes. If she had stayed another hour, someone would have discovered the object in her apron. Talia looked at Corinne. You were going to call me a thief. I didn't know about this one. You gave him access to the house. Corinne lowered her eyes. I know. You gave him access to us. I know. For the first time, Corinne sounded ashamed. But regret did not erase participation. Graham's phone rang. His attorney, Simone Webb. He put her on speaker and explained everything. Do not contact Morrow. Preserve every device. I'm calling state investigators. Then she asked. Is anyone currently in danger? Talia looked at the termination message. Maybe. Melanie suddenly remembered something. Morrow has a contractor network. For what? Graham asked. Investigators. Recruiters. Reputation firms. Talia looked at her. People who carry out termination protocols? Melanie nodded. Corinne whispered. There's usually a first step. What? A verification visit. Talia's stomach dropped. They send someone to the employee's home to identify leverage. Talia grabbed her phone. My cousin. Graham looked at her. She lives with you? Yes. Talia called. No answer. Again. Nothing. Still at campus. Phone dying. Home soon. Graham said. She doesn't go home. He called security and arranged for Brianna to be met at the campus security desk. Then the front gate intercom rang. Everyone froze. Mr. Ashford, the guard said, there's a man at the gate asking for Ms. Brooks. Talia's heartbeat accelerated. Who? He says he's from an employment verification company. Corinne went pale. That's them. Graham's voice hardened. Do not let him in. The guard answered. He's already leaving. The registration returned. Civic Response Consulting. Simone went silent. Then said, "I know that company." "From where?" Graham asked. "They were sued 2 years ago for fabricating misconduct reports against domestic workers." Talia looked at Corinne. "This wasn't research." "No," Simone said. "It looks like organized retaliation." Melanie opened it. "A contract. Morrow Domestic Solutions, Ashford Residential Pilot Program." Graham read the signature lines. Corinne Ashford. Then, "Executive Sponsor, Graham Ashford." Graham stared. "That is not my signature." Corinne whispered. "Morrow said you had already approved it. You never asked me. I was afraid you'd shut it down." "That was your answer." Talia noticed the contract date. 14 months earlier. She opened the attached employee list. Her name appeared first. Beside it, primary resilience subject. Strong family dependency. High retention probability. Talia stared. What does primary subject mean? Melanie opened the final attachment. A proposal appeared. Phase 2, National Training Model. At the top was Talia's hiring photograph. Taken before she ever met Corinne. Graham slowly looked at his wife. "You didn't start experimenting on Talia after she came here." Corinne's face crumpled. Talia turned toward her. "You hired me for it." Corinne did not answer. She didn't need to. Talia finally understood why every mistake became a lesson, why every reaction was filmed, and why Morrow cared whether she quit. She had never simply been a maid inside Ashford Manor. For the first time, Talia realized the house itself had been staged. She had been the centerpiece of an experiment built around discovering how much humiliation a worker would endure before she broke. And according to the proposal on the screen, Phase 2 was scheduled to launch in 72 hours. The proposal remained frozen on the screen. Phase 2, National Training Model, launch in 72 hours. Talia's hiring photograph filled the first page. She stared at it. 14 months earlier, she had walked into Ashford Manor believing she had been selected because of her experience. Now she knew the truth. She had been selected because Dr. Adrian Morrow thought she would tolerate humiliation longer than most people. Graham closed the laptop. Phase 2 is not launching. His attorney Simone answered through the speaker. "Do not cancel anything yet." Talia looked up. "Why?" "Because Morrow doesn't know how much evidence survived." Graham understood. "You want him to continue believing the launch is happening." "Yes." State investigators arrived before midnight. By morning, they had secured the raw videos, employee profiles, contracts, subscriber records, and communications between Corinne and Morrow. 17 former domestic workers identified in the files were contacted. Their stories were almost identical. A small mistake. Public correction. A complaint. Then suddenly employers across the city refused to hire them. One woman had moved 3 states away. Another had spent 8 months believing she had somehow become unemployable overnight. Talia sat through every interview. Not because investigators required it. Because she wanted to hear their names. People had been reduced to subjects for too long. At noon, Morrow finally called Corinne. Investigators recorded the conversation. His voice sounded relaxed. "Did Brooks calm down?" Corinne looked toward Talia. "No." A pause. "Then terminate her." Corinne swallowed. "How?" "The same way we discussed." "What exactly do you want me to do?" Morrow became impatient. "Plant the missing silver piece, document the discovery, and let Ashford Security handle the rest." Graham's jaw tightened. Morrow continued. "Once she has a theft allegation, nobody will care what she says about the videos." Talia felt something inside her settle. For months she had wondered whether she was too sensitive, too proud, too unwilling to accept correction. Now she heard the truth from the man who designed the entire system. The humiliation had never been about improving her work. It had been about destroying her confidence before she could challenge them. Corinne asked. "And Phase 2? 3 days. Charleston Grand Hotel. 42 household management clients attending. Investigators exchanged looks. That was what they needed. The launch continued. But Morrow had no idea his audience was about to change. 3 days later, the Charleston Grand Ballroom looked like an expensive corporate conference. Gold curtains. White tables. Large screens. 42 wealthy clients expecting a presentation about advanced domestic workforce management. Morrow stood confidently on stage. Corinne was supposed to introduce him. Instead, she sat in a separate room with investigators. Her attorneys had arranged cooperation, but cooperation did not erase what she had done. Talia stood behind the ballroom doors wearing a dark green suit. No apron. No serving tray. Graham stood beside her. "You don't have to go in." Talia smiled faintly. "That sentence sounds familiar." "What?" "People keep telling me what I don't have to do." She looked toward the doors. "For 14 months, everyone else decided what I had to do." Then she opened them. Morrow stopped speaking. His face changed immediately. "Talia." Several guests turned. He recovered quickly. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually perfect. Ms. Brooks was one of our early behavioral subjects." Talia walked toward the stage. "Tell them what that means." Morrow smiled. "A workforce resilience study. Tell them about the staged mistakes." His smile weakened. "Excuse me?" The broken vase. Silence. The scratched garage door. Someone in the audience shifted. "The object you planted in my apron so you could call me a thief." Morrow looked toward the ballroom exit. 2 investigators were already standing there. Talia continued. "Tell them about the 17 workers whose reputations you destroyed." Morrow stepped away from the microphone. "This presentation is over." Graham entered. "No." The main screen changed. Investigators played excerpts from the recovered raw footage. Morrow placing the broken vase. Morrow damaging the garage door. Morrow hiding the letter opener. Then his recorded phone call played. "Plant the missing silver piece. Document the discovery." The room erupted. Several potential clients immediately began leaving. Others demanded to know whether their own staff had been profiled. Morrow tried the side exit. Detectives stopped him. For the first time, the man who had studied how other people reacted under pressure had nowhere to manipulate the outcome. He was arrested for conspiracy, unlawful surveillance, fraud, evidence tampering, commercial exploitation, and crimes connected to the fabricated accusations against former workers. The investigation widened quickly. Morrow Domestic Solutions collapsed within weeks. Several reputation firms that had helped circulate false employment warnings were sued. 17 workers had their records corrected. Employers who had relied on fabricated allegations received formal notices explaining what had happened. Corinne pleaded guilty to multiple charges involving unauthorized recording, commercial misuse of employee images, conspiracy, and attempted retaliation. Her lifestyle company disappeared. So did her marriage. Graham filed for divorce. But Talia did not stay at Ashford Manor waiting for him to become a better employer. She resigned. This time nobody threatened her reference. Nobody demanded an apology. Nobody rang a silver bell. Graham gave every affected Ashford employee full back pay and compensation and funded independent legal representation without requiring confidentiality agreements. He also permanently closed Ashford Residential Academy. Months later, he asked Talia to meet him inside the manor dining room. The same table was there. So was the serving mirror where she had first seen Corinne move the spoon. But the cameras were gone. Graham handed her a folder. "What's this?" "The rights to every surviving video containing your image." Talia looked surprised. "You bought them back?" "Yes." "And the other employees?" "They receive their own footage and decide what happens to it." Talia nodded. "That's how it should have been from the beginning." She started toward the door. Graham stopped her. "Talia." She turned. "I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening in my own house." Talia considered him. "Then remember that when someone tells you everything is running perfectly." He nodded. "I will." A year later, Talia helped create an organization that trained domestic workers to recognize retaliation, hidden recording practices, manipulated employment references, and abusive performance systems. During her first public workshop, someone asked what finally gave her the courage to confront Corinne. Talia thought about that dinner. The ruler. The camera. The laughter. Then the sentence that had changed everything. "You can fire me, but don't humiliate me." She smiled. "I thought I was asking her to respect my dignity." Talia looked around the packed room. "Then I realized dignity was never hers to give me. And that was the lesson Corinne and Morrow had never understood. They could manipulate cameras. They could manufacture mistakes. They could threaten jobs. They could even convince someone, temporarily, that silence was safer. But they could not permanently own the story of the person they tried to shame. Talia had finally taken hers back.